Hey guys, welcome back to the series. I'm Tim Wright. I'm a broker at Cushman & Wakefield. I'm joined here with David Songy. We're at Spaceman. It's a rooftop bar in Buckhead, Atlanta. Today we get the honor of hearing from somebody who's really been in the trenches. David Songy is a real estate developer that has been active since the early 90s. A lot of war stories, a lot of exciting things we're going to get into today. So David, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you could join us.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to read off just kind of an intro, a little bit about your bio, and then we'll just, have a conversation and kind of hear the whole story. David Songy, you are a visionary real estate leader, developer, and co-founder of Songy Highroads, a real estate development company. You have over 3 decades of experience. You've guided your firm to remarkable success, acquiring and developing more than 5 million square feet across office, hotel, multifamily projects with investments exceeding $2 billion. Your entrepreneurial acumen and strategic focus on urban infill opportunities have positioned your firm, Songy Highroads, as a market leader that's renowned for innovative strategies and institutional quality real estate. Notably, in 2016, you had a Harvard Business School case study written about you that highlighted your resilience navigating the 2008 Great Recession. Beyond business, you're a guest lecturer at Harvard and Georgetown, and leading initiatives in education, homelessness, and human trafficking prevention. David, I'm really excited for this conversation. There's so much we could dive into, but I don't know, maybe we can get the high level of your career. I know Songy Highroads, y'all started, early 90s? And I'm curious, did you grow up here in Atlanta? Like, where'd you get your start? What was your first job? Where'd you go to school? Kind of give us the backdrop before you got into real estate development.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me and appreciate your interest. I'm from Louisiana, South Louisiana. I was born in Baton Rouge and was raised in a small town of Alexandria, only 40,000 people, and one of 7 children, large family. So we all went to LSU, and I went to undergrad school there, accounting degree, and then got my master's degree in finance. Also through LSU and an overseas program in Germany for multinational management. And then decided I was going to go into real estate, and Louisiana didn't have much in the way of big companies that you could learn the business properly. So it was suggested that I go to Texas. So I went to Dallas and knocked on doors and found a job in commercial brokerage of land on the north side. It was a booming market, and so I worked for a company, and we sold land, and then from there I was hired so I was in brokerage, but I wanted to be in development, and so I interviewed with a company in Houston after about 3 years, and it was a company that had started, the guy that started the company had been with Gerald Hines' interest for a number of years, and he went out on his own. So it was a smaller version of Hines, but it followed the same principles of office building development. So I worked there for 6 years and did some work in Texas and out of state. And then from there I was hired by 2 other former partners of Hines, Michael Barker and Dean Patronelli. And they moved me to South Florida at the age of 28, 29. My main project was to build a 17,000 seat sports arena for the Miami Heat.
Oh, wow.
In the NBA, and I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
So they kind of threw me into that. And
it's a pretty high stakes project.
A sudden learning curve, relocated down there. So that was new, I was still young. And simultaneously, we were building a spec office building in Fort Lauderdale, 200,000 foot spec. And so oversaw those 2 projects, and then completed those, and then really put a deal together that I considered my first deal that I, put the whole project together on in Coral Gables. It was a downtown city block, assembled the land, and got really lucky. Got IBM to come in and commit to half of the entire project on a 10-year lease, and they were 50-50 partners. So it was one of these deals that it just a lot of luck and being at the right place. And it was called Columbus Center, and it was a great project for me.
Wow.
And then from there, I decided that I thought I knew enough. I thought I knew it all. I was young, naive, and brave.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to go out and try to hang my own shingle.
Wow.
And
So you were early 30s at that
I was
point?
34 at
Okay.
the time, yeah.
Yeah. So you had this big deal with IBM, and you're like, I got it.
I got it.
I got it.
I said, they all do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And little did I know.
Yeah.
So I wrote a business plan. It took about a year, and I sent it to the vice chairman of Heinz, named Perry Waftel, for review. And he was very impressed. He had been following my career a little bit, and he said, I'll be your partner, which was amazing because
Wow.
I never expected him to do that. And that was in 1992. So he is now chairman emeritus. He's 89, but he stayed on as chairman until he was 85. So we were long-term partners.
Wow.
Great mentor, friend.
Yeah.
And without him, there's no way I could have had the vision and the financial capabilities to go out and compete.
Yeah.
So so he was very special to this whole operation.
Wow.
And so then we just started buying small office buildings in the RTC days, Resolution Trust, at very low basis.
Okay.
And we grew from Florida to Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas, and Mexico City. And then in 1998, we moved the company here to Atlanta. So that was the beginning of our Atlanta start.
What made that switch happen? Or did you hear Atlanta's a good spot to hang out?
I'm from Louisiana and Texas. I'm from the South, and South Florida is not necessarily the South in terms of the people and the makeup. And also, I had wanted to raise the kids in a more, traditional environment. So as the company was growing, the counselor said, if you're going to move before high school for your kids. So we said, let's go ahead and move. So we picked Atlanta. It was southeast, it was southern, it was the airport. We could get everywhere in a day. And so that was our decision.
Perfect. Now, how many kids do you have?
We have 5 kids.
Wow, okay, big family.
Big family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a repeated theme.
Came from 7 and produced 5.
So what's funny, when we talked to Brian McGowan just about a month ago, he came from a family of 7 and had 5 boys.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Okay, so winding the clock back to this IBM deal. So you were doing your regular duties with Heinz. How did that come about? Did you say, hey, this is a site here, or do you meet one of the owners of one of the plots and said, hey, I think we can pull something off? Or were you kind of commissioned by Heinz, hey, go make a development happen on your own?
So first of all, it wasn't Heinz. It was partners from Gerald Heinz who had gone on their own. So it was called Barker Patronelli.
Okay, there you go.
But I was their regional partner in Florida, so I did run Florida for them. I was contacted by a broker who had a piece of land, and it was a strategic piece of land in Coral Gables across from the Hyatt Regency. And he thought we could assemble these 3 sites. So it took 3 assemblages to put them under contract. And we love the site and we love the market. Coral Gables is a very solid office market, multinational corporations. Okay. And we had heard IBM might be looking to move. And while I was assembling the 3 sites, we had a meeting with them and they became very interested in it happened very quickly. I mean, there was just a lot of luck. It was timing, I think, was a big part of it. So that's kind of how it happened.
Very cool. Okay, so let's go back to this timeline here. So you're 34, step out on your own. So the thesis was buying, was it office product that you were into originally? And then that evolved into hospitality as well? Or was that over time? Or?
Well, I knew office. That's all I knew. At first, and so why build if you can buy at 50% of replacement cost? So we were successful buying in Florida and Texas, and so when we moved the company here, we put a office building under contract at 17th and Peachtree.
Okay.
It was a government office building that had been vacated.
Okay. Is that
and
still there today?
Yeah, it's the Residence Inn, Marriott Residence Inn.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
the building. That was our first hotel.
Okay.
So we were going to upgrade it, like we had bought a lot of vacant office buildings and upgraded, and they had done well, so we were going to do the same here. And oddly enough, again, luck and timing, Marriott called and said, we need a location for Marriott Residence Inn, and we like that location, and that building works. The floor plate is a good size floor plate, which I didn't know why a floor plate for a hotel would be different, but
Yeah.
it's the length and the depth that worked very well.
Is that just the room size? They have a certain way they lay out the.
Yes. So
Okay.
you have the depth of the room and a corridor, and then another side. So
Okay.
you basically have a 30-foot room, and then you have a 5-foot corridor and another 30-foot room. So 65 feet, and it was a long rectangular building. So
It's
perfect.
Yeah.
Parking underneath.
Yeah.
Midtown wasn't yet rocking like it
Yeah.
is
What year
now.
was this?
This was in 1999, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, from what I've heard, that was when they first started saying like Midtown's the place to be.
It was just starting.
Yeah.
And we're right across from the High Museum, but it still wasn't.
One there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we also didn't know that Residence Inn is one of the best flags at Marriott. It's very popular.
Okay.
They do well. So we were lucky that that flag was selected, not only just with Marriott. So I already had a partner that had approved the office renovation, which was the Mellon family, and in Pittsburgh. So when we changed to hotel, I had to fly back up to Pittsburgh and ask Miss May Mellon if it would be okay. I said, you can back out because I've never done a hotel, and I'm changing my business plan, so you can change your mind. And so she looked at it a little bit and talked about it, and she said, if you're staying with it, we're staying with it.
Wow.
We believe in you. And that was also very fortunate. And we did, and it did well. So that was the birth of hotels, and from there we bought a hotel in Dallas in Market Center. It was a Wilson World hotel with a big atrium. We converted it to a Hilton Garden Inn, and that's one of the projects in the case study at Harvard.
Okay, got it.
That we'll come back to. And then from there we bought a hotel in Vinings, the Wyndham Vinings,
Okay.
and upgraded it, and it did really well.
Yeah.
And we started developing with Hyatt after that. So then the company was 50% hotel, 50% office.
Okay. And that was still early 2000s.
That was going into that was going into the 2000s that we were doing both products.
Yeah. Was your strategy then to get it stabilized and sell, or were you kind of, we want to hang on to these assets, or just go
most
on to
of
the
our
next?
model for our company has always been that they are capital intensive, so there's a lot of capital, a lot of equity. So the majority partner usually is the deciding factor. So if you have Harvard Endowment Funds or Carlyle or Elliott Capital Management, or Goldman Sachs or UBS, they pretty much decide when you've achieved success and stabilization to the point that it confirms the projections you made 3 or 4 years earlier. If the market's right, then you go ahead and sell.
Got it.
And that drives the internal rate of return, and the higher the internal rate of return, the more profitable it is for us as the developer.
Sure.
Because we participate in what's called a waterfall promote.
Oh, yeah.
So that works for us as well. So the typical hold is 3 to 5 years on most of these projects.
Okay, got it. Okay, so got your footing. Y'all have been at it for 10 years, 15 years, and then Great Recession happens. How many properties were y'all involved with when the bottom fell out?
Our model has generally always ended up somewhere between 15 and 20 properties in the greater Southeast.
Okay.
So we had close to 20, I think, going in to the Great Recession, and that was the greatest economic decline and financial downturn in our lifetime, including my partner, who's a generation ahead.
Yeah.
No one had seen markets collapse almost overnight, and so real estate values fell between 50 and 60% in 18 months because there was no liquidity, there was no purchasing, there was no debt. You couldn't get a loan, you couldn't move a loan. So it was just a point where it was a little bit like, falling off a cliff, like where's the bottom?
Yeah.
And it was very, very troubling, it was very challenging. Not many people had been through it. So we were learning how to renegotiate with lenders and extend loans and just keep things alive.
Yeah.
And just grab onto as much oxygen as you could and get through however long this storm was going to last. At the time, it seemed like we could never come out of it. It was so tough. It was
This is
dark.
the next 5-10 years.
And so I was calling my counterparts and financial partners, and fortunately we had big majority partners in these projects, because if you go through a downturn without a majority partner, institutional partner, then
you're probably done.
It's difficult to it's difficult to raise capital in a downturn.
Yeah.
And so that was a tough time, and we grew up a lot and we learned a lot, and we fought our way through it. And so we basically divided the assets into three categories. There were the stabilized assets, which were healthy and we knew could make it. There were the projects that were under construction or in a lease-up period in the early years, and we had financing and equity, and we weren't finished yet, so we could keep working on those. And then the third tranche was the projects that had not yet started. So if we owned land or we owned a vacant building, then we had acquired them, but we did not have a construction loan. We did not have all the equity raised. And so all those numbers changed, so those projects were not in favor. And so we assessed all three categories, and we decided which ones we would keep. We knew we couldn't hold on to all the assets. And it's a tough, very tough decision to talk to your partners and say, it's called throwing good money after bad. I mean, if it's going to take 10 years just to get back to where you were, then you can't keep feeding it. But we had never done that before. So at first we're kind of feeding it a little bit and seeing if there's any benefit. And then our partner said we cannot keep doing that. So we had to cooperate with lenders. It's called a deed in lieu, where you go to your lender and you say, look, we'll give it back to you. We'll keep running it. Maybe they'll pay us some fees. But that's how we ended up doing that.
Wow. What do you think it was that kept y'all around? Because I know there's, I don't know how many, hundreds, maybe thousands of real estate professionals, developers that got wiped out entirely.
That's a great question. The advice we got going in, and I give a lot of credit to Gerald Hines. I've studied his company, and his right-hand partner, Perry Waftel, was my partner. So you can imagine all the wisdom that he shared with me over the years. And the Hines philosophy was always have a large majority partner, because real estate is a long-term natured business. You can always sell early, but if you can't sell early, you have to hold on. So go ahead and give up the ownership, take less ownership, and have security. It's like an insurance policy. So the projects that had the larger partners in them, Fortis, a Belgian insurance company called Assurant, was our partner on a number of projects, and they had deep pockets, so they could pay down a loan when the loan came due. So a partner is invaluable during a down market, and so we had followed that subscription pretty well. Some projects we had not followed it on smaller ones, and those were the difficult ones to get through.
Sure.
So
that relationship with Harvard, was that there already? Because I know they've been a
When the
partner of
downturn
y'all's.
started, we had liquidated the 5 projects that we bought with Harvard. Those were all office acquisitions and turnaround deals.
Okay.
And those 5 projects generated an average IRR of 22%. So they had
Pretty
been
good.
pleased with that. But by the time the downturn started, we had liquidated everything.
Yeah.
So we were talking to them about opportunities and how they were managing the downturn, because they still had their assets in real estate, and they were going through the same problems we were.
Oh, yeah.
It was very similar. So that we talked through the downturn, and then that led to the case.
Got it. So downturn happens. You're working through all these different loan agreements and trying to, stop the bleeding as much as possible. What year was it where you finally looked up and you're like, I think we're going to be okay? Is it 12, 13?
So it began in 8,
Yeah.
but 2009 is the year that I think of as the toughest, the precipitous drop. It just seemed so sudden. And so I always look back to 2009, but then the hangover from 8 and 9 lasted into 11 and 12.
Yeah.
So it was really 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I would call that 4 or 5 year for every real estate owner.
Yeah.
And so it turned for us in 2013. We bought 2 large office buildings in the Houston Galleria with Carlyle as our partner. We bought a vacant office building in Washington, D.C., 2 blocks from the White House next to the St. Regis, and we converted it into a hotel with Hyatt. We bought 7 office buildings in New Orleans and Baton Rouge that the mezzanine lender it was over levered, and so we bought out the assets and at a discount. And so literally in a 6-month period, we bought the 2 office buildings in Houston, the 1 in DC, and 7 in Louisiana. So that's 10 projects. And then on the Houston site, we tore down the retail building and built a 325 key Hyatt Regency and a 160 key Hyatt Place.
Wow.
So that's 12 projects.
Yeah, you're cooking. That's
So,
a lot.
I don't know what the capitalization of that is, but that was over $500 million of projects, all within less than 12 months. And it was like, wow, the light's on, we're busy, we're traveling.
Jeez, yeah.
I didn't know, I can't really understand how it happened that fast.
Yeah, but all of a sudden it's like we're going again.
So
It's
again,
exciting.
I keep talking about timing. I mean,
Yeah.
timing is something nobody can control. The market's bigger than all of us.
Right.
And you have to react to it. And
Yeah.
So
Well-
we got a break.
I'll say, one of the themes that I'm hearing is your partners have a great level of trust in you as a developer. I mean, just the case with the Mellon family that they said, whatever, your name's on it, we're here. I mean, can you speak to, I guess the relationships you had with banks, and I imagine there's a lot of trust that goes into, hey, Dave, we believe in you, we're going to work through this with you. Like, I'm sure that was an ingredient with helping weather the storm through the downturn.
Yeah.
So,
we always treated our partners really well. Our theme was integrity. It was always on the website. It sounds corny because everybody says they have integrity, but in South Florida, I saw a lot of developers that didn't necessarily have integrity when I was down there, and always said, let's make that a hallmark. So transparency with your partners is very important. I always told my team, tell them the truth. Do not make anything look better. Be realistic. As soon as we hear anything negative, share it. People want to share positive news, but you just have to earn their trust, and that's what we did. Now, each project we had a different partner, so you're constantly building a relationship and proving to them that they can trust you, and that not only are you good in real estate, there's a lot of people that are good in real estate. So, but did they feel comfortable with us running that project? And so that was the key. Was when we would go to a new partner, when when Harvard checked us out, or when Carlisle checked us out, or when Hyatt Corporate checked us out, or Goldman Sachs, Walton Street in Chicago. For a company our size, we were not big, but I think the hallmark was that our institutional relationships were as good as anybody in the country. And when they would check us out, they would call all these other partners because it was listed.
Yeah.
And they knew people, and they would check us out, and Songy's reputation is solid. And so that led to additional partners. So I think that was the key.
Yeah.
I think that's real important.
Wow, that's cool. Switch gears a bit. What are you working on today, and what do you think of the state of things now? I mean, they could change next week. It feels like all these tariffs and everything, but there's definitely been in the office market here a lot of pretend and extend kind of situations, and it's just a weird cycle we're in with office product. I'd love to get your take on it.
Yeah, today we are finishing a ground-up development here in Atlanta in Midtown. It's called the Howell. It is at Howell Mill and Interstate 75, right on the corner. High profile, great location, mixed use, so it's ground up, multifamily, luxury, high end, as well as a pad site for retail and some retail in the base. We opened last summer in June, July. We are 70% leased right now. So probably running a little ahead of projections on occupancy. The rates are a little softer. There's been a lot of building down in that market. But it's on good track, and we think that there's a good chance we'll be stabilized by this summer, so 12 months.
Wow, that's quick.
So we're happy with that.
Yeah.
We are working under a pre-development services agreement on a project in Savannah, and it has been publicly announced that the city of Savannah and the Port Authority there wanted to add an additional hotel to the convention center because the original convention center was too small, so they doubled the size of it, and they completed it in December. So there's a 400-room hotel built into the first part of the convention center, but they needed more rooms.
Got it.
And that was a condition of the release by the state to build with the city.
Wow.
They mandated another hotel.
Yeah.
So back in 2017, we were awarded the project, and then the convention center expansion got delayed, and then COVID hit. So a lot of things happened.
Yeah.
On, off, on, off. Anyway, we are 18 months into a pre-development services agreement, and we have all the architects, engineers, the contractors have all been selected. The project is fully designed, it's priced, and the next phase is going out to the municipal bond market through Morgan Stanley.
Okay.
So we are about a year and a half into that and hoping to start later this summer.
Yeah. Sounds like you just need to put a shovel in the ground, get going.
Well, we're gonna sell the bonds first.
It's
a large project. It's a 450 key hotel. It's 40,000 feet of meeting space, so it's almost 2 projects with the pedestal in the tower.
Yeah, that market has shifted so much.
Yes.
We just did an office deal down there, and 2 major office buildings just got announced they're getting converted into hotel.
Oh,
so
yes.
their occupancy is like 98% in
Yes.
the office product. So rates in low 20s are now mid 40s and pushing to 50. And it's just an interesting office market. There's a lot of smaller tenants, so that Eastern Wharf product, they're ready for larger tenant to come so they can kick off their product. But there's nobody that's 40,000 feet down there that needs office product. It's lots of 2s.
A lot of growth
10s.
in that market, and the port obviously is driving a lot of that.
Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, so the Howell, that's a beautiful project too. Love that area, and Savannah. Tell me about the building we're in now. We're at Hyatt Centric. This is right in the middle of Buckhead, behind Lenox Mall. How did it come about? And give us a story.
So projects a lot of time come about through relationships, and we operate from Washington D.C. down to South Florida and over to Texas, and we've done a lot in Houston. So we met with Simon Properties, who's the largest mall owner in the country. Our Hyatt Place, Hyatt Regency, and 2 office buildings is directly across from their Saks Fifth Avenue store in the Galleria. And they had a pad site on a corner that they wanted a hotel built. So they were impressed with our Hyatt Regency. So they called and said, would you consider developing that site? And so we had talked to them for about a year and concluded the market wasn't ready from a standpoint of construction costs, and the returns were not there. So we said, let's keep an eye on it, but not start. And they said, we have another site in Atlanta, and they were starting a program called asset intensification of their mall sites, where they had a department of people that studied the different malls, and malls sit on big pieces of land, and there's a lot of surface parking. So they said, if we go back and get approvals for more density, we can go vertical. But they're not a vertical developer. So they said, as with Houston, would you consider a site for us in Atlanta? And of course, this is our backyard. So that's kind of how that started.
Got it. When was that? So this opened up in 2021?
This project opened about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this project is unique a bit. It's one of the newer flags for Hyatt, called Centric. It's a boutique brand.
Yeah.
Secondly, the brand likes to have a rooftop experience, so it's unusual. Most rooftops that you see in the past were somewhat of an afterthought. They take a roof and they reconstruct it, and it's indoor, outdoor, but it's not fully designed, or the elevator may not go up. This entire top floor of the hotel was designed from day one as a rooftop, and it was indoor and outdoor. It had a north terrace partially covered, a south terrace partially covered, and an interior area so that we could host multiple events at one time. So this rooftop has done really well. It's enjoyed a lot of use and a lot of success since it opened.
Wow. And it is managed under Hyatt Centric. It's not a
Hyatt
different
runs
operator.
the hotel for us, yeah.
Okay.
So we're the developer, they're the operator. And we have done a number of projects with Hyatt in a 50-50 joint venture, which is somewhat unique. Hotels typically do not fund any capital, or very little.
Wow.
And with our relationship with them, we feel real privileged that they will fund half of the equity.
Yeah. I saw on one of the packets you sent me, so there's a site adjacent to here. Is that the parking lot over here for
Yes,
residential
it is
tower?
Out the north end.
Okay.
And there's a surface parking lot that we use for valet.
Okay.
And I do not know the size of the site offhand, but Simon was pleased with our development here, and they said, would you be interested in doing a high-rise residential project on the site, and we would joint venture it with you and put the land in. So we entered into an agreement. We have designed the building and priced it. In the state of the market today, construction prices are high, interest rates are very high, and construction loans are pretty much non-existent for the last 36 months.
Just hang
So
on.
we said, let's just wait, just be patient. It'll come back and we'll kick it off. But it's a nice project, and it should do well.
Yeah.
But that point leads to what I call the debt crisis, and the debt crisis is a product of COVID, and we call it the COVID hangover. COVID caused a massive shift in our market dynamics, and people started staying home and not going to the office, and that led to the beginning of declining property values. Hotels were not operating and doing any business for a while, so we got through that part. Now they're back. Office buildings have gone through the worst performance downturn in our lifetime, and it's going to be poor for a long time. And then when the Fed started increasing interest rates, it was the fastest acceleration of interest rates over the shortest period of time in our lifetime.
Ever, yeah.
So interest rates went from 3 or 4% to 9 to 10% overnight.
Yeah.
Well, actually it happened over 15 months. But at a
Which is
fast
kind
rate.
of overnight in real estate world.
In our world,
Yeah.
that's like overnight.
Yeah.
So that, and then lenders withdrew and said, we're not lending. So I call it the debt crisis. We're 36 months, we're about 36 months into the debt crisis, which means there has been a complete, almost near complete void in lending by private equity or banks. If you do borrow money, you're borrowing at or close to 10%, which really doesn't work.
No.
The amount of equity needed would be 50% or more, which also hurts your yields. And so what does that mean to the real estate industry? If you were to ask the major brokers, JLL and CBRE and Cushman, your group, what impact has that had? In the last 3 years, transaction volume has been off 75, 85%.
Yeah.
So no sales, because in order to sell an asset, the buyer has to finance it in most cases. He can't finance it because there's no debt available. If you want to buy an asset, you have to be able to pay cash for it. And to do that, you need to get the number down lower. So it has completely taken a massive chunk out of the investment sales market.
Yeah.
So real estate industry as a whole has been 3 years in what I call a vacuum. And you can't buy, you can't sell, so you have to hold it. That's fine if you have a plan for that, but nobody planned to have to add 3 years to the hold period. And the performance of the assets has dropped. Multifamily has dropped. Industrial has dropped. Office has declined rapidly.
Yeah.
Hotels have come back. Retail's doing reasonably well.
Yeah.
But in general, performance has fallen. Lenders aren't available. Liquidity's not there. So you have to renew your loan at some point. And when you do, you're going to have to put a lot of equity down, which no one planned for. That's the COVID hangover, the debt crisis that we're in today. We're getting ready to go into year 4. There are large projects here in Atlanta that have been announced that are going back to the lender. You know about a lot of those.
Yeah.
There's going to be more of that here and in DC and San Francisco and Houston, all the major cities. So we still have some wood to chop as an industry to get through these challenging times because of the COVID.
What does your crystal ball tell you? How long is this going to last, and are we just all waiting for the interest rate cut? And
I think interest rate cuts will deliver some confidence, and it will allow a number of projects to pencil out better.
yeah,
We need time to study how the markets are going to react. We thought we were recovering and saw some improvement in office, and then the tariff announcements caused a lot of jittery reaction. So I think that will take some time. I think this year we'll learn a lot, and then 26 will be a good chance. 26 will be the beginning of the turn.
Yeah. It's such a bifurcated office market, specifically here in Atlanta. I think other cities are seeing it too, but Class A stuff is getting tight. Your Cousins, Highwoods, Piedmont, they own their buildings mostly outright. Maybe they have a partner or two, but they get most of the office leases. We talked to the guys at Cousins, and they're like, we get to see every deal out in the market, especially for a year here in Buckhead. Let's do a fun one. Tell me about this watch. You're talking about, we have a lot of watch people. I wore this Trafford. It's a startup watch company out of Austin, and probably got 10 or 15 comments on it in the last set of videos. So the watch viewers out there, this is, it's a unique piece you have.
Well, I like your watch as well. I was looking, Kevin O'Leary, I think, is on Fox. He's the business analyst. Really successful, and he's a watch guy.
Oh yeah.
Every time he's on, they say, "Tell us about that watch." And some are extravagant and some are not. You can get watches today, but I kind of have a everyday watch that I bang around in, and then one for more of a business use. So this is a Swiss-made watch called Blancpain, and it's unique in the way it's made. It's made handmade, these guys are real surgeons to get in there and deal with all the
Yeah.
meticulous. We're in a digital age now, so this watch still requires to be hand wound.
Oh, it's not automatic.
It's automatic, but if
Okay.
you leave it
Oh yeah, you
for
go.
3 or 4 days in the drawer,
Yeah.
this morning when I put it on,
Yeah,
I had
you
to
go-
wind it again. So
gotta get it
it's
going.
kind of going back in time.
Yeah.
But I just like the handmade nature of it.
Got it. It's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
What's your daily driver watch?
I wear a it's kind of more of a sports looking watch, but Tag Heuer,
Oh yeah.
and it's a bigger, bulkier watch. Kind of bang it around a little bit, but it's kind of an everyday
Yeah.
deal, and you can get wet. You can get wet and stuff. So
Yeah.
this one you got to take it off a lot.
No, yeah, I can see it now. I just don't want to bang that one up. Okay, here's a question. What's a favorite project of yours over the span of your career? And I'm curious, what was the best return you've ever seen on a project? I don't know if those are the same answer, but
Yeah, I think a favorite project kind of has a lot to do with where you are in your career. So I was, so busy starting this company and starting out doing smaller projects. And of course, I wanted to get back to bigger projects because that's where I'd learned
yeah,
with bigger companies. And sometimes you're like, will I ever get to do a bigger project? But we flew out to Houston back in 1997, and my partner lived there. I had lived there. I knew the market reasonably well, and it had been in a down market for over 10 years, from the time I left to when I went back, and oil fell in the market. Houston was an oil market,
yeah,
so it was severely overbuilt. After 10 or 11 years, it was coming back. The locals there didn't really see it as coming back. We went in and said, we see some signs of it coming back, but it was almost like they were so caught up in how bad it had been that they couldn't even think about it. So even my own partner went to Jerry Hines and said, David has a project he wants to buy vacant, and what do you think about it? And their team looked at it and they said, we wouldn't do that right now. So I'm like, I can't tell my partner that I'm going to do something that Gerald Hines himself, he's based there.
yeah.
So I kept studying it, and we went back out again and toured it. And I had a gut feeling that we could do this. And so I flew in Assurant, which is Fortis insurance group out of Belgium, their New York office. And we had done 3 projects with them that did well, and they said, we'll take a look at this with you. And I said, there's some people that are going to say you shouldn't, so, but they followed me, and it was incredible. We bought the project for $30 a foot. It was 200,000 feet. It had a parking deck. It was in the Galleria submarket on Post Oak Lane.
$30 a foot.
Right off the interstate. It was a great location.
Wow.
It looked like a war zone. I'll never forget, we're going through the building and it's pouring down rain, and my partner from Assurant flew in, and we're in meetings all day, and he says, when are we going to go see the building? Well, I knew the top floor had water pouring in it like a waterfall. I said, he's going to want to go up there.
Yeah.
And so I told Todd, my partner, I said, let's just keep delaying and delaying. He says, I've got a flight to catch, let's go.
Yeah.
So we sheepishly brought him to the building.
Yeah.
And there were no elevators, and it was dark, no power. So we walked up 11 flights of steps
Jeez.
to the roof.
So water just pouring down
And
the stairs.
It was pouring worse than I thought. And I said, this is over. He's going to get on the plane and go back.
Yeah.
And anyway, he ended up doing the project with us. So we had $30 in the cost. We had $30 in the upgrades for the building and $30 in the TIs. Believe it or not, back then, your TI package was $20 a foot.
Yeah, you could actually do something with it.
And so
That's
we underwrote the project at 17 gross for a rent. And at the end of the day, within 5 months of opening, the project leased up at $20 to $22 a foot in 5 months. And
wow.
we held it for about a year, and La Serra which is Los Angeles Teachers Pension, came in and said, that's what we want to buy. So we sold it, and it was a very, very attractive yield and beyond what we had projected. And of course, our partner was very happy with that.
Oh, sure.
So that one comes to mind.
This gut feel that you had, was there, I don't know. I mean, obviously your intuition, maybe there's not a certain thing you could point your finger at, but I mean, did you hear there was rumblings in the office market of people looking, or?
We talked to a number of brokers who said they had not seen this much activity lately, and they were starting a lot of moves. The big tenants were starting to move, and that meant that they saw something. The tenants saw that if they wait 2 or 3 years, rates were going to be up a lot. So there was a lot of movement going on or planned. And we looked at that and said, we can get a major tenant in this building. And Houston has a lot of big tenants, kind of big difference than Savannah, say, Yeah. So we relied on the brokerage and the market intel, and as we were under renovation, which took over a year to renovate it, the market started coming back, and so it was just a timing. The timing turned out real well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We talked about this, I think, over the phone. Big topic of conversation right now is talking about the office market a bit more. Older office product that nobody wants. You can put a lot of money into it and hopefully get office tenants back in there, but the conversation of a residential conversion, from I understand you've done a handful of those. What does it take to? We were talking about the hotel earlier. There's ideal layout of a hotel scheme. Like, what would you say about these? I would say the office product that nobody wants now, and how would you convert them, and what does it take to convert an older office building?
So we've done really more office to hotel conversions. We have studied a number of office to residential conversions, some of which are underway now. The typical idea for us is urban infill redevelopment. So it's being like the Residence Inn at 17th and Peachtree in Atlanta, right in the middle of Midtown, older building, smaller floor plate. The depth of the floor plate is very important. If it's too deep, you can't get natural light into the interior. And so the bigger office floor plates are typically 20 to 30,000 feet each.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interior space without natural light. So those are not, so newer buildings are tougher to, believe it or not, you would think you'd want a newer building to convert. We like the older buildings because they have bigger windows for circulation and they have smaller floor plates. So the first one, a Residence Inn is really like an apartment. It's extended stay, so it has kitchens and and so that really was like a multifamily conversion, and that's what we learned a lot on our first one. And and then in DC, we took an older building that we studied it for both office and residential and hotel, and that market at the time was really strong in hotels. So Hyatt said we like that a lot, and that was a Hyatt Place, so that's more of an overnight version, but still the similarities of residential and hotel, or it's lodging. It's about the lodging business, and then ironically, in Houston, we the two office buildings that we bought with Carlisle 5 years later came on the market, and the vacancy had dropped from 95% to 25%. That market had dropped off. Wow. Probably the worst market in the country for office. And we studied that building and brought in a design team, and we were going to convert that one of the two buildings into residential. And we ended up being outbid on the project, so we did not do it. I don't think it's started yet. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we still have our eye on that. And then we have some other projects that we are underwriting now and negotiating to acquire. One is in Knoxville and one is in Washington, D.C. So we've done as much, if not more, in taking a vacant building and going into adaptive reuse as anyone, and with the plethora of office product available out there. I think our advantage is we can look at the location and the floor plate and the size. Another thing about office buildings is, you know, a 400,000 or 500,000 foot office building, you don't really want to convert something that big into residential or hotel. It's just too big, and you can't. Then you have to go to mixed use, and that's complicated.
Yeah.
So the size of the building is important. The floor plate's very important. So that's really what we look at. We can tell quickly. We can tell an owner, should we go down that path or not? You know, before spending the pre-development money.
Got it.
So
cool. What about some developments here? Like we were talking before we started rolling about Centennial Yards. That's a big project. We've got the Medley up in Johns Creek, and you know, there's some new stuff that's coming online in Atlanta. Just let's go with Centennial Yards. I love your thoughts on that project.
I really just know about it from what I've read. I know that the history of it, as I understand it, is that was originally the Gulch, what was referred to as the Gulch. It's a big area of underdeveloped real estate, but downtown was growing. Centennial Park led to the proliferation of that development on that part of downtown. So it's almost like a separate market to me than traditional downtown.
Yeah.
Centennial Park was the driver, and then the aquarium. Those two things to me changed Atlanta, because Atlanta was not a destination for tourism. It was a place for business, and the aquarium became the #1 most visited piece of property in the city of Atlanta, and still is.
Wow.
So it's a year-round. It's not a sporting event, right? So like Mercedes-Benz. So that changed it, and that helped the Gulch overcome some problems they had. And so the new developer has come in, and timing appears to be really good. A large-scale mixed-use development with a lot of different uses and entertainment. And so large-scale, a lot of infrastructure, complicated, and an impressive undertaking.
Yeah.
So I think it should do well.
Cool. Let me ask. You told me a little bit before down at the bar. So this Harvard business case study. How did that come about, and what was the process to having this case study done about you?
So that's a good question. I think Harvard endowment funds operated their real estate through. They ultimately became Charles Bank Capital and ran their real estate investments through it, and that's when we first met them. And then later on, it became Bay North Capital, and then it was 100% real estate in Bay North. So they wanted to divide the different investments they're making. $40 billion fund, so they have a lot of capital. So, so we became partners with them, which was really a turning point of the company. I mean, when we were approved by them, they put up $30 million, and we went out and bought 4 or 5 projects, and fortunately those did well. And then if you're partners with Harvard, then we found that other partners liked you even more.
Yeah.
And so that helped the company a lot. And then we liquidated those assets and stayed in touch with them, but we were not doing any business with them. And when the downturn hit, we were exchanging information, as I said earlier, you know, with our counterparts. How are you doing here? What are you doing with the lenders? And so I was talking to my counterpart at Harvard, at Bay North, and he said, we'd like to meet with you and go through some questioning. And so I just thought they might want to start another investment, programmatic investment. And so we got up there and went through a day of a lot of questions and interaction and all that. And a few weeks later, they called and they said, we'd like to write a case study about how your company navigated the downturn. And I said, I'm not sure I want anybody to hear that story. You know, I mean, it's not all great. And they said, no, but we need to know and people need to know. It happened to everybody, and you seem to have managed it reasonably well. And I said, well, some parts were and some parts weren't. So it was a decision to make. I didn't know anything about a case study other than reading them, but they said it would take over a year to write it, which they write it, and we have to supply the data, and then we have to confirm all the data. And they had talked to a lot of developers all over the country, and some said, we'd like to help, but we do not want to go into all the details of it. And but anyway, they said that they liked our story, and if we were willing to kind of bare our soul on all aspects of it, that they wanted it to be truth. And I said, well, are we using real names and real lenders and all that?
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, it's all factual.
Wow.
So they said we would write it, and then we would send it to you for one review at the very end, and that would be approved or not approved. I have the right to not publish it. So they gave me that right. And but the only thing I could edit was facts, factual information. So none of my opinions, it was all written up in Boston. So that took a long time, and they wrote the case, and the first version came out too long. It was too long to teach in the class, and then they cleaned it up a little bit. But they liked it because I said, why me? Why? I mean, there's developers everywhere. Why'd you pick our case? And they liked the fact that we were in a number of different markets. They liked the fact that we had different products. So we had office buildings and hotels. We had mixed use. We did not yet have residential, but for example, they ran a study on which projects did better in the downturn, the office buildings or the hotels. Well, if you asked 90% of investors back then, would you rather be in a hotel or an office, they'd always say office, because office was always such a great business, and hotels were risky. Until the limited service hotels came out, hotels were always really risky, the full service. But anyway, Harvard discovered with us that our hotels did better than the office in a downturn, and that was real revealing. So we learned a lot from it, and then it was published, and they called and said, it's been approved by the school. It will now be taught here at the university, and these cases will be sold to other universities all over the world. They buy these cases from us. So would you mind if we share it with Princeton and Georgetown and Duke and others? Yeah. Then I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, like what does this really mean?
I said, can I come see a class first? I want to see, how do you teach this? And they said, no, you're coming to the first class. You're teaching the first class.
Oh, great.
So I said, oh, okay. So Perry Waftel, my chairman, and Todd Nasserini, our president, and I flew up and had dinner with the faculty the night before, and went to 2 back-to-back classes, 90 kids, hour and a half each class, and heard the debate they did over what they thought we did right and wrong. It was, in some parts it was comical, in some parts it hurt a little bit. But there were some good parts to it. So it was really just about telling what happened, and the reason we did it is because by then it was 2013, 14, 15, and we had already commenced over $1 billion worth of new projects, the ones I told you about earlier.
Yeah.
So we kind of felt like the story wasn't about success. The story was about teaching the students at Harvard and other schools, what is it like to go through that? When you're on this ship and you leave the dock and you're going through a storm and you don't know if you're going to make it across to the other side, what is it like? What do you do, and is it survival? And the name of the case is Songy 2011, Restructuring to Survive or Surviving to Restructure. In other words, what are you thinking? How are you going to get through this, or are you going to get out of the business altogether? Or are you going to give up, or are you going to fight? So, we fought through it, and the case goes through a number of our projects and what we did, but in the case, the answers to the outcomes of the projects are not stated. We knew by then the outcomes.
Yeah.
And Harvard knew. But the way they teach it is we want to know. So when you get to the end of the class, they want to know what happened with the Dallas Hilton Garden Inn. I mean, it was underwater. It was gone. And we patched and scraped and invested and held it together. And we ended up selling it on a 1.85 equity multiple, which, when you told the kids in class, they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And, we told them some projects we had to let go, and some projects did well. So again, it was a third were troubled, a third we saved, and then the other third were healthy.
Yeah.
So, and that was 10 years ago. So I just taught it in February. My daughter, Michelle, came up and she wanted to see the class, and they allowed that. They don't like visitors to be in attendance. And she was able to watch it. And I teach it with the gentleman, Charlie Wu, who oversaw the writing of the case.
Yeah.
And,
how many students have gone through this class?
Well, it's been 2 classes a year for 10 years, and there's 90 kids in each class. So 180 times 10,
Yeah.
maybe?
Almost 2,000.
Yeah. And then after we teach that afternoon, there's a lunch and interaction, and they'll call and say, I'm interviewing, I like to establish relationships. I've helped them, some of them with what type of real estate do I go into? A couple of them went to Europe, which I couldn't help too much with, but all over here. So I've become friends with some of them over the years, and they next year I've been invited back to teach at the Harvard Design School. Wants to teach the case, so it'll be interesting. It'll be in a different part of the campus.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
It's been enjoyable.
I gotta ask this. I mean, was there ever, a time period during the downturn that you were like, let's just sell it? We're over our skis, and I don't know. Like, did that ever cross your mind of?
As far as just get out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only so many times. I don't know how many sleepless nights of how am I going to get out of this?
It was, if you've never been through a storm like that, you can't practice. And so it's just like being on a ship crossing the Atlantic and the storm comes up and you have no clue if you're going to survive, literally.
Yeah.
So it gets bad, and we sat down a number of times and just said, there's no way we can make it out of this. There were times where it was seemingly not overcomable, but if we just dropped everything, then we lost our reputation. Integrity was still important. I told Todd and the team and Perry, we knew our investors, we knew the institutional partners, we knew our individual partners. We had to look them in the face and say, this is what we're taking a hit on. And that was the toughest part. But in the end, our partners appreciated the integrity and sitting down at lunch and telling them how bad it is. And I remember the one example is the Healy family from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I had told them that we were having some problems and everything. They said, keep us up to speed, we appreciate it. And 8 years later, they called and they said, we want to do the Howell Mill project, and we know the owner, we'd like you to negotiate it and be your partner.
Wow.
So, I think that came back in some positive ways. But yeah, we thought many, many times, should we just hit the, get what do you call it, the ejection seat?
Yeah, we're out.
In the cockpit, like Top Gun or something. It crossed our mind a lot.
Gosh.
But and then there's lenders and there's litigation and lawsuits and courtrooms, and you're fighting for your project and you're fighting for your investors, and we started winning some of these cases in court, and
wow,
incredible legal fees. And I said, how is it we can win these cases? It was amazing. But we got a few breaks there, and then all of a sudden we started buying again, and money came back, and it's hard to explain.
Going.
But
just a roller coaster.
You have to, everybody says real estate's about location, the old real location. How many times have you heard that? You're at Cushman. Location. Yeah. I teach at Harvard several different observations, but I say timing, because the greatest building in the world on the best location in the wrong market opens up during COVID. What happens?
Piped out.
So but you buy that same building at 50% cents on the dollar, you know,
Yeah.
2 years after COVID, and you've got something. So
Yeah.
I just think timing's everything, and for there to get timing, you have to, I say you need oxygen in the tank. And the people that left the business, which after the Great Recession, a lot of people I knew left and never came back. They were scared.
And they go sell insurance?
And you know, we all ran out of oxygen, but
Yeah.
we just found a way to get through it and get to the other side and survive. So
Wow.
that's all I can remember.
Got it. Well, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
You've hit on a lot of, you know, career advice through things, but I mean, do you have any, looking back at your career, of you know, since you stepped out on your own, or I don't know, what would you say if somebody's, you know, getting their career going, and kind of getting their sea legs?
As far as going into real estate or starting their own company?
Let's say starting your own company, or
Yeah.
how to weather downturns. You've hit a lot of these kind of life lessons, but I don't know if there's any sort of rules that you personally live by, of, you know, how you get after it every day, or
Yeah, it's a good question, because I help young people. When I started, like I said, I didn't have much help, and knocked on doors in Dallas and got a job. I like helping young students that are interested in real estate, and I spend time with them and help make introductions for them. The perception of real estate by young people when you're out of college, or people in their 20s or even 30s, they look at a website. Look at our website. You see $3 billion of completed projects over 25 years, and their eyes kind of get big, and they're like, God, that's great. That's what I want to do. They really don't understand what we do every day. You're looking at a picture of a building that, you know, that we created, but it's all the work that goes into it, and what about the economy and interest rates, and so there's a bit of naivety on their part there, and I try to explain that. The worst part about real estate is how cyclical it is. You're always dealing with either whether it's really good or really bad, but it's very cyclical. And managing, it's like going back to the ship crossing the Atlantic. You know, when the weather's good, it's great, but the next morning you wake up and there's 30-foot waves. So, you know, the Great Recession happened almost overnight. COVID happened more than overnight, but over a 3 or 4 month period, we knew it was going to get bad. There's never time to plan. So I teach Plan B. Your Plan A, when you're young, you write a business plan. This is the plan. We're going to get the money. We're going to build this project. Okay. What happens if interest rates go up? What happens if we have a recession? What happens if you have a cost overrun? What happens if you need an extra $10 million? So I teach all these Plan Bs. What's your Plan B? And I drill it into their head. And I said, go to your boss and question him and say, this is a great plan, but run a sensitivity analysis. What if this goes wrong? What if everything can go wrong? There's so many more things that go wrong than right. It's not even close. And if you're this ship crossing the Atlantic, you're going to run into storms. Whether it's a 2-year project or a 5-year project, you're going to run into storms. So plan for the storm, which means have more capital available. But when you have more capital available sitting on the sideline, it's not getting a yield, but you need it. So what does that do? It drops your return. If it drops your return, the investor won't invest. So how do you manage that? So I think for young people, they need to understand the real estate. Like right now in your industry, on the transaction side, you know, I know the transactions have been off for 3 years, right? So a lot of young guys in their 20s and 30s are saying, I'm not making any money. I mean, you know, we're not selling anything. How did this happen? They now understand it, right? So they didn't understand that as well going in. So I think that part of it. And then as far as going on your own, first and foremost, your experience. I think I was fairly young, you know, at 34. I think part of that was I was naive. Part of it was I had a desire to running my own company at some point. But I underestimated when I started out that I was no longer with a bigger company. I was at Songy Partners, which nobody heard of. They knew me, but I'm competing to buy buildings against the bigger guys, and the broker and the owner's like, we're not selling to him.
Yeah.
So I had to change my business plan in the first year and start buying small buildings, 20,000 feet, 40,000 feet, 80,000 feet, not the big ones. I didn't want to do that, but we did it. And then I had to start an asset management company to create fees because I didn't have any fees come in. So I adjusted real quickly. And in month 8, we broke even in the company. It was amazing. We had 3 years to break even, and we broke even in 8 months.
Wow.
And then the third point about going on your own is I did it starting from scratch. In other words, I didn't have any assets, and I didn't really have any money. My partner, Perry, was putting up the capital. But if I started over again, I would have gone to an existing company, maybe a younger company or maybe a mid-sized company, and I would go and do more of a joint venture, a partnership. And you know, they have 5 projects or 10 projects. They've got fees, they're ongoing, they're known. It took me the first 3 to 5 years to build the name and start from scratch. And it was mine, but I could have overcome that. I don't believe you need to own all of it. It's not about the ownership. So I would go about it a little bit differently. And I would have arranged for more capital in the bucket going into it than we did.
Where did the Highroads name come from? Did you add that later?
Yeah, we did. So Highroads was a separate entity of the company, and it was called Highroads Holdings. And when the downturn hit, our attorney said, you know, we had some guarantees outstanding on the company from different loans. And so they said, you know, we need to start doing any of your new projects in a separate company so that they'll be insulated. And so we formed a company called Highroads Holdings. And Todd and I talked about it a lot, and some people said, you need to leave the Songy name in because we had a name built up. And not to forego it. So when we were going out competing to buy assets and borrowing money, Highroads Holdings was never heard of. Like, no one knew what it was. And we're spending half the call saying it's David and Todd and Perry. But they said, what happened to Songy? So it became distraction. So we kept, we did a hybrid, and we literally, I don't even think we formed the actual entity. So we just said, let's call it Songy Highroads, and then Songy's still in it and Highroads is in it, but it's the new beginning of the post downturn.
Got it.
And so then you know, over time, I didn't really need my name to be, you know, on the shingle. And you know, Todd's been president for a long time, and all the senior team, and so we just said, let's just call it SHR. It's easier, you know, an acronym. So the company's kind of become SHR, and then we have subsidiaries called SHR Resi and different ones like that.
Got it. Well, good. Well, David, this has been awesome. Is there anything else? I know you have a handful of notes here that you'd like to share.
I think that's about it. I think we covered, you know, quite a bit, and I'm not sure how much of it is of interest to the viewers out there or the listeners, or you know, who's riding in their car. But I appreciate your interest and sharing the story, and you know, I like talking about it. I like helping people that want to get in the business, or people that are in the business that want to talk about what direction do I go? Do I go from brokerage to development? Do I go into asset management? 2 of my kids are in real estate, and one is with Manulife, and the other is with Atlantic Pacific. So you know, they've come up through the ranks, and they're learning different aspects. Real estate has a lot of, I call it the wheel, right? I mean, there's brokerage, there's management, there's asset management, there is investment sales, there's debt placement, there's development, sponsorship, construction, leasing, marketing. So what part of the wheel are you on? But if you're going to go on your own, you need to know a little bit about all of it. So you need experience that, you know, you can draw from. and learn from that. For example, Todd has been my partner for 35 years. You know, he was with the company before for 6 or 7 years, and then this one for 30. So he is capable of doing everything I'm doing, but he really excels at the development side, the construction side, the numbers, the budgets, the schedules, all of that allow us to have these partners. They are looking at performance, and they separate market performance from what's under your control. What's under our control is cost, budget, and schedule. So, you know, like the Savannah project is going to take 32 months to build it. It takes 18 months to plan it. How do you manage that? And it's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So his team specializes in that, and they're very good at that. I try to keep my nose out of it. He says when I come into a meeting, I just add too many trinkets to the budget and cost. So I try to stay out. But I have enjoyed the side of the business where I source the opportunities, like at the Howell or in Savannah or this project. You know, my relationship with the CEO of Hyatt is really good, and it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and call him or call the head of Hilton, and they take your call and you can go meet with them. So I like the business development side, and then I have worked on the capitalization side. So how do you get the money together? How do you get $100 million together in 30 to 60 days while you're balancing a contract and putting money at risk and answering questions about a building that 3 weeks ago you didn't know anything about? How do you become an expert on something you're buying and then go tell your partner you know everything about it, enough to spend $100 million? And doing that in a development, you have a year to do it or more, but in an acquisition, you got to learn it overnight.
Wow.
So that's the intrigue. So I'd say that's kind of the takeaway.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Dude, thank you.
Appreciate it.
David, this has been
All
awesome.
right.